Needless to say, this last week was an interesting one around here. We got hit with some really cold weather that I haven't experienced this time of year the entire time I've been gardening. On Monday, we had a cold front come through that brought ice and sleet along with some really cold temperatures. We dropped to the mid-20s and stayed in the 20s for over 12 hours. On Tuesday, we didn't warm up much, and overnight we got even colder. We had a low of 23, and for all my Celsius folks, that's around -5 Celsius. I was really worried about all of my plants, even though they are cool weather plants, to say the least. Luckily enough, my husband ordered some more frost fabric without me knowing, and it arrived right before the weather hit. I covered everything I could with what I had on hand, even the garlic, even though I was pretty sure the garlic would be just fine. One reason for covering the garlic was we have been so much warmer this year, and the garlic is way further along than it has been in previous years, and I just was not going to take the chance on having any damage to the garlic. Garlic is probably the most hardy thing I have in the garden. With all of our warm weather, my strawberry and blueberry plants also started to bloom, which is a few weeks ahead of schedule. I also just got done planting the rest of my cool weather crops, which lettuce isn't as tolerant as broccoli or cabbage. My worry definitely started to set in for sure, especially with getting ice and sleet on the front end of the cold front. If I didn't get things covered, I could almost guarantee I was going to be experiencing a lot more loss than I did. Lucky enough, I escaped with some slight damage to a handful of things, which I'm pretty sure will recover just fine. I've experienced cold swings before, but nothing like this at the end of March. You definitely always learn something every year when it comes to the garden, and now I know just how much cold weather some of these plants can really take. All right, so let me show you guys some of the damage that ended up happening. Honestly, things looked a lot worse during the days it was super cold, but now that we're a few days after the fact, everything's looking pretty okay. The broccoli definitely probably took the most hit, which I'm kind of shocked on. It actually had ice crystals and everything, even though I had frost fabric, and it's probably just because it's the lower, more shaded part of the garden. So you can see here, this leaf is really soft. There's some purpling to it. Yes, hey, can I help you? What's going on? Here, I'll let you guys out. There you go. Go have fun. All right, back to what I was saying about the broccoli. So you can see some of the purpling on the leaves. These will definitely end up dying back. There's a little bit more translucentness to that one, but I definitely had some damage, but they overall look just fine. You can see this leaf here completely died back. That one's really purple. The collards and the kale did absolutely fine, but yeah, the broccoli took a little bit more of a hit than those did. So the only things I didn't cover were my elderberries. I didn't have any more stuff to cover, and they're native, so I figured they would just be fine. The one thing that struggled initially was the onions, and I was really worried that I was going to end up losing some of the onions, but they're looking honestly really good. So you can see though, there is definitely some damage. You can see how translucent that ended up getting. If my camera will really focus, there we go. This ended up getting really soft, and I do have a little bit of video showing this little section because it was all completely flat to the ground. Frost fabric ended up coming off of it. I tried with every brick I had, but there was this little section that really got more damage than the rest. You can see this one here also got some pretty translucent to it, but it's looking like everything is really going to be just fine. The onions are one of those things that I've spent the longest on so far this year outside of the garlic, but I've been tending to these since the end of December, so I was really worried. But yeah, there is a few areas that definitely got some damage to them. There's some tips here that took a little bit of a beating, but they're looking really, really good. Now with the lettuce, I really thought the lettuce was probably going to be a goner because broccoli is more tolerant than the lettuce, but this is an area that actually gets more sun. And it wasn't until the second day. So the first day they looked okay, but day 2, these did not look so hot. And I definitely have some leaves that died back, but I think with having these already so far along and hardening them off as well as I did, they really just took the beating and they actually look completely fine. After day 2, I took off all the frost fabric and I was a little on how they were going to be because they were very dark green. They looked like they got a little bit too frosty, but everything's looking really well 2 days later. So you might be able to see here, there's a leaf that completely died back from getting a little too cold. That one's pretty yellow. And all around, there's some along the edging here, like that one completely died back. There's another leaf that completely died back. Another leaf that completely died back. So definitely some of the outer leaves definitely took more of a hit than anything else, but that's completely fine. I'm really not worried about it. Man, that is a hardy weed. Let's go ahead and grab that while I'm at it. So I did cover the strawberries and the blueberries since I had blooms. If the blooms end up getting like a hard frost to them, they'll just completely die back. And with how early they're blooming, I really didn't want to jeopardize that. So I'm happy that those all ended up doing well too. It's looking like covering the blueberry plant worked really well. Blueberries are pretty cold tolerant as well, but with the blooms like this, I was really worried. So I ended up covering that. And then all of the garlic. So the garlic definitely doesn't look as happy as it was, but it looks just fine. I do need to go ahead and get this fed again. What's crazy, so this batch right here, this is Georgian Fire. It is looking insane compared to the other varieties. I was a little bit worried about my Ischium Red because this is a soft neck variety and I've only ever grown hard necks before, but with how far along they were, I was just a little bit worried about it because you might be able to see like there is some yellowing to some of the leaves, which will happen if it gets a little too cold. You might have a little bit of a dieback, but garlic is really, really hardy. I wasn't really sure though with the soft neck, simply because it is one of those that is a little bit more tender, but this is a variety that is supposed to do really well for my area. So that's always really important to look for when you're looking for a garlic variety, to see what does well in your area and what it's tolerated in the wintertime before. This was another area I actually didn't cover at all, and this is my bunching onions. They are starting to put on some buds right here, and these didn't look so hot initially, but again, onions are pretty hardy. I do know that onions can tolerate down to 20, but only for a short period of time. All of this is yarrow, and then I have some echinacea popping up as well. So I was pretty worried about the onions. I've only ever experienced one dip. That was last year after I planted them. We had a low of 19, but it was only that low for a short period of time. Onions, like I just said, can tolerate a low of 20, but only for about 4 to 6 hours. And since we had 2 straight days of pretty cold temperatures, we never got down to 20. So one thing I ended up learning is plants don't feel like temperatures like we do, because we were in the teens and then I started to freak out since we were in the teens. And that is when I learned that plants don't feel like temperatures like we do. I'm really shocked I've never learned that till now. I have a few chamomile plants that did just fine, but honestly, I don't think we lost anything at all, which makes me very happy. Hi, Sweeney. Are you watching the chickies? It's fun, huh? What a show for a kitty. Looks like they are going after probably some worms. They are digging through, that's for sure. But either way, me collecting all of my bricks and restacking them was a complete waste of time, because I have bricks in stacks all around that I now need to restack after stacking them. Here's a huge wheelbarrow full of bricks and random bricks. So I am moving along today as scheduled. I am getting carrots planted today. I'm still debating on throwing a few other things in the ground, but I am gonna go ahead and get carrots down today. The things I'm debating on, I don't know if I want to throw any I have these little container snap peas that do well in containers, but I just do not know if I have room. I got to figure that out. And I need to figure it out soon because they need planted like ASAP. But I am getting carrots planted today. So in my experience, my favorite way or my favorite seed for carrot is anything pelleted. So carrot seeds are really tiny, and in the past I've always not had the best of luck. And then last year I tried pelleted carrot seeds for the very first time, and it was a game changer. I had beautiful carrots. So I am growing one this year called the Naval. It's a pelleted seed, and I'm gonna start right here. I believe I might go ahead and line a garden bed or two with some carrots as well. But a pelleted seed is a seed that is coated in a clay coating, and it just makes it a lot easier to place your carrot seeds. And all I'm going to do is get all of this straw completely removed, or removed for the most part, and then I'm just going to start planting carrots. I'm going to plant them about 2 to 3 inches apart from each other. Yeah, where's my hair tie? Here we go. I also really love to plant fall carrots because the greens are pretty tolerant. The carrots can stay in the ground kind of like a refrigerator even when you get super cold, and then you can just come out and grab carrots when you need, so you don't really have to harvest them in the fall like you do once we get really warm into this like summer season. So carrots are one of those crops that do not do well with transplant, so you're better off just direct sowing them. I am going to be starting some more seeds after this as well today, and this is like the last like bulk seed starting day I really have for the spring season. I'm sure I'll probably start a few other things, but I can't believe we're already into the final 4 weeks. We are currently sitting 3 weeks from my last average frost here, and I typically plant out a lot of my frost tender things the first week of May, even though my last average frost is around the 19th of April. So I do need to get my hands on another round of beneficial nematodes to spray in the next week. It's looking like I do have a few grubs here. Where'd my little plate go? I just had this little plate. I just saw it. Oh wait, there it is. Give the chickies some grubs. But you do typically want to spray a few rounds of beneficial nematodes because everything's in different larva phases. And by doing a few rounds, you're able to make sure you're getting anything else. At least it's suggested to do a few rounds in the spring or fall. What did I find? 6, 7, not too shabby. Hey girls, come here. There you go, good job. Get them, get them. I like how these little pelleted seeds came in a container. I've never ordered from High Mowing organic seeds before, but they were the only ones that had the Calibra onions when I needed to order them this year. So I ordered a handful of things for them, like carrots, poblano peppers was another one. The onions did phenomenal, so very happy about that. So like I was saying earlier, you always learn something every year when it comes to gardening. If you don't learn something every year, I'd be shocked because I'm in year 7, and every year weather's different, your experience is different, things play out different. Like, it's definitely one of those things where you can get discouraged because you work so hard on things, and then out of nowhere your plans can just get shot. So it's always good to be adaptive. You're going to experience loss no matter how hard you plan or try or anything like that. The very first year I started a garden, I had everything planted out, and within 24 hours it got totaled out by a hailstorm. I live in Kansas, so Kansas is one of those states that you honestly just do not know what you're going to get. Our weather can be so flip-floppy all the time, and you really just have to be adaptive. It's taught me to be patient. It's taught me that even if one thing works one year, it's probably not going to work the next, but always keep notes and continue to learn. But if this is one of your first years gardening, don't be discouraged if something doesn't go according to plan. Easier said than done. I was literally sitting on my couch, just like watching the weather so closely and just being so disappointed that if I was going to end up losing all of my stuff, it was just going to be just like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to plant there if I do end up losing a lot of this stuff, because that would have opened up a few garden beds that I don't plan to have open until about mid-July. I still struggle at times. I also struggle to be patient, but gardening has also taught me a lot of patience over the years. But gardening can be discouraging. It can be heartbreaking. It can also just be so exciting and so rewarding, especially when you have been through some trials. It makes those other moments that much more sweet. The other place I have ordered from in the past that typically has a decent amount of different organic pelleted carrots is Johnny's. I really like Johnny seeds a lot. 369. Anyone else want to finish that song? Hit it for me one more time. Get low, get low, get low, get low. To the window, to the wall. That's where I'll end it. But every time I keep doing this spacing, it's just 369, and I keep singing this in my head. I really love having a yardstick on hand. If you guys can't tell, I literally use it for everything. There was a season like 2 or 3 years ago I started using the yardstick, and it's just been one of my favorite things. Last year I harvested my carrots, and that was like right after I got my freeze dryer. So I ended up dicing a bunch of the carrots and throwing them into the freeze dryer, and oh my gosh, do I love that for soups, especially chicken noodle soup. I can just take the bag and throw it in, and I have carrots ready to go. Oh, I'll have to show you guys this. So it's a grub that was definitely affected by the nematodes. The nematodes will end up getting inside the grub, and they'll end up turning like this yellowy, orangey red color. I don't know if you'll be able to tell much with the yardstick here, but that guy's completely dead, and that is what you want to see when you use them. So I am just going to slightly push all of this soil over these seeds, and then throw this mulch very lightly over it. I might not use all of that again. And then we'll give these a good water. I do keep getting the question on what type of straw I use if I ever see like weeds pop up. So I have always really loved Easy Straw. So Easy Straw is the only straw like this that I found. There are a few like other ones you can buy, but you always want to make sure that on the label it states that it's weed free or some sort. Like the Easy Straw is 99% weed free. So I will still get like a few like grass pieces pop up, but it's nothing crazy. There was one year I bought a similar straw, not thinking about it. It was filled with seed. It was very annoying, needless to say. One and only time I've used something outside of not Easy Straw. I've also just used grass clippings for a few years. That worked great. Like right now, this time of year, you're obviously not going to have a ton of grass that you can take the clippings from, but that's a really good option. It also adds some nitrogen back to your soil during summer. Got the girls back into the coop. They just go right back in pretty easy since they're so scared of me. So one thing, the nest box is holding up great, the one I fixed. So very happy about that. Curious to see how it holds up once, well, I guess we did get cold again. We'll see how long it holds up. All right, looks like we got 4 today. We got 6 yesterday. Always love when I have 6 egg days, but I'll take 4. So the seed starting room is definitely starting to get a little packed. So I actually need to thin out a handful of seedlings, and then I need to up pot my snapdragons and also my dahlias. My dahlias are actually growing a lot faster than I expected. So I'm just cleaning my pruners real quick. So this is really important to do when your stuff's outside and then you're introducing different fungal issues. So cleaning your pruners will really just help with spreading disease. So say you are pruning a tomato plant and it has blight, and then you go and snip other stuff from other plants. You could introduce that blight to other plants when it may not have been exposed otherwise, and all sorts of different fungal diseases. I personally just like to clean my pruners regardless. I like to make sure they're clean regardless, especially at this seedling stage. I'm using my fan to kind of help dry those off a little bit, just as extra precaution. This was something I didn't do for the first few years of gardening, and it really does make a pretty good difference here. I'm also going to thin out my loofahs. So I ended up having 5 out of the 6 loofahs germinate. I have a humidity dome on the sweet potatoes. So speaking of the sweet potatoes real fast, because you guys gave me so much good advice when it came to the sweet potatoes. So a lot of you guys told me to put it on a heat mat. So I put the sweet potatoes on a heat mat. I also just have them domed, even though the dome doesn't fit, just to kind of help with that humidity. Sweet potatoes are a tropical plant, so they like warmth. And the moment I put them on a heat mat, they really started to kind of take a little bit. I think here in like the next week, I'm really going to have some rooting going on. If I lift up a sweet potato or both those sweet potatoes, they have a lot of sprouts starting to happen. I did go ahead and toss that one sweet potato though, because it ended up just completely rotting, and I didn't want that to get exposed to the other ones at all. So I personally like to just snip any extra seedling, just because any root disturbance will really affect different plants. I personally like to try to make sure like the less root like disturbance as possible. I feel like it makes a really, really big difference. I do need to thin out some of these loofahs here. So my parsley seeds did finally start to germinate. I think they took like 2 weeks or so to fully germinate. My tomatoes are starting to pop up left and right though. We did those last week, but today is my last little bit of like big seed starting for the spring, summer. I will be doing more seed starting, especially like come July for fall time, and I might be like starting a handful of things here or there, but we are on the final round today of starting seeds. Today I'm starting cosmos, zinnias. I'm going to start a few more echinacea, even though my echinacea is popping up. I want to plant a few in my front garden space. I'm thinking I'm going to throw a few straw flowers in there, and then I'm also going to start more hyssop, because I'm pretty sure my hyssop is old and it's not going to germinate. So I actually forgot that I had other hyssop seeds when I was doing all of the hyssop. Okay, so let's see here. I do need to probably mix up a lot more soil than I currently have. I think I really nailed it on the head. So I went and bought 4 of these bags, I think 4 bags of this potting soil. Gosh, probably January or February. I know it had to have been January, December, end of December. And I think I'm going to have like the perfect amount for all the seed starting that I was wanting to do. Throw some worm castings in. You'll notice that plants will tend to take off the moment you give them more room. So that's what we're going to do today. The garlic comes out of the garden the 1st to 2nd week of June typically, and that is when I will get a second round of stuff planted in the garden space. So I actually think come probably first, 2nd week of May, once I get everything planted out, I'll reevaluate the garden at that point. But I'm thinking once the garlic comes out, I will probably be planting that space with a second round of tomatoes. I'm also thinking I might pot a few of my extra pepper plants and then plant those out come June, because I did plant out 1 or 2 extras of each variety, and I do have some room where I could up pot those and then have another wave of peppers after that. I also could just throw a bunch of flowers in the ground. I'm trying to see exactly how many flowers I'm going to be able to plant out throughout my backyard and also my front area. So yeah, so once the garlic is harvested, I'm going to have 2.5 beds of open space, and then 3 to 4 weeks later, all of the onions will be harvested. They're typically harvested the 1st to 2nd week of July. And I think last year I harvested them like the very last day of June, because we had rain on the way. But I will have 6 garden beds completely open up by midsummer or right before midsummer. And we have such a long growing season here. I have plenty of time to plant out a second wave of something. So I'm just taking a nursery pot. I got some more cleaned up earlier. Actually, I'm running out of room down here. That works for now. So I'm just going to put some soil at the bottom here. Compact it down about halfway or so. Then at this point, I'm just going to grab the soil block, which you can see, look at the roots already on that. And with this living another 4 weeks down here, it will really like having a little bit more room. So actually need a little less soil in here. And then I'm just going to plop the soil block in. And then you can see how the soil block is just sitting on top. So I'm gonna hold that soil block down and throw soil all around it. And then I'm also going to compact that soil down and around. Man, I forgot how time consuming up potting is. I really didn't want to up pot anything this year, but the 3 things I just up potted, which were the dahlias, the hibiscus, and also the snapdragons, I've never grown before. So I really just did not know how to gauge them, and I went on the safer side of planting them out a little bit earlier than I probably would have. So note to self for next year. So I'm going to plant some cosmos, zinnias. I'm also going to do some straw flower echinacea, and then I'm going to re-sow the hibiscus up there. So I am so excited about the Cosmo variety that I'm going to be growing. I actually did not grow cosmos last year at all. And I kind of missed them. I didn't think I really would, but I saw this one this winter and I was like, I need to get that. So the Bright Lights Blend Cosmo. This looks so beautiful, and I love the Queenie Lime Orange Zinnia, and I think these would just pair so beautifully together. And then also the Snapdragons are in like that same similar like colorscape. So I'm so excited about this. So I'm just gonna plant out 8 cosmos, 8 zinnias. I'm gonna do 4 echinacea, and then I'm gonna do a handful of straw flowers as well. I'm honestly thinking I don't know if I really want to tackle this project or not, but the one thing I don't like about this shelving unit over here is the shelves have a 40 a 40-pound weight limit. So if I ever want to have a whole tray of like peppers like this and have a few, it's just way too heavy. So I'm almost thinking, I just feel like it'd be such a pain in the butt to move these lights over to this shelf and be able to have more room that way. But I am using the top shelf for a handful of things, and I'll probably like alternate a few things, but I do not like the weight limit on this. Every year I try to pick out one new flower. I think this year I picked out like 4 new flowers to add to the garden. I'd never had flowers in my garden for the first like 2-3 years outside of sunflowers, but I personally think flowers make your space just so cute. And then they also just really help with pollinators. I've been asked the question on how can I attract pollinators without flowers, and you need flowers. It's just, you really do need flowers. I almost forgot to do the hiss up here, but if you're in a similar growing zone to me, my first expectant frost for the season is around mid-October to the 3rd week of October. You don't really have to do too much seed starting. My first year garden, I didn't even start a single seed until like this week. So just keep that in mind. Honestly, like you may see like me doing all of this stuff and think you might not have time. You have plenty of time. Mostly though, like for what I am doing, I'm sowing out so many different things to get the most out of my space. And this has taken me years to really get into learning how to succession sow, what goes out when, and all of that jazz. So don't be discouraged. You can still start a garden. You have plenty of time. You can just direct sow seeds in the ground. You don't need to start anything, especially if you still want to start seeds. So definitely keep that in mind. But I think that is going to conclude everything from me today. Honestly, I know that there really wasn't too much going on, but it was very cold, and we are approaching this like 3 to 4 week window where there really won't be too much to do with the garden. All of our seeds are really started, minus like maybe a handful that I might have to re-sow, or I think of something else, and nothing will be sown out into the garden really for the next 4 weeks at this point, and most of our seeds are also started. I will be hardening off seeds, but for the most part, this is the calm before the storm. We are finally approaching that last little window before the gardening season really gears up and gets going, which I am so excited about. But I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me today, and also just learning from struggles and just seeing what my garden went through this week. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye.